I am lucky to be joined by John Newtons, who heads our agriculture team. I really want to get a picture of what's happening in crops, livestock, and food processing.
We export a lot of crops, and Canada as a whole is a net exporter, one of the fourth or fifth largest in the world exporter of crops. So we, in particular in Alberta as well, we have a pretty large share of the crop production in Canada. We do about 30% of the wheat, 30% of the canola, 50% of the barley. In the wheat industry, we're exporting a small amount of unprocessed to the U.S., generally speaking, relative to production, but canola, it's quite a bit. We produce a lot of canola oil and canola meal that goes into the U.S. market, and a lot of canola seed and canola meal that goes into the Chinese market. Generally speaking, about 75% of what we produce, as far as canola is concerned, goes to those two countries.
How do these farmers respond to these tariffs?
There'll be a bit more direct impact on a crop like oats, where we actually export about 50% of that. So there'll be a more direct impact because there's a bit more of a direct supply chain associated with that. With canola, so for example, for the US, it's primarily canola oil. They're the largest market, not by quantity, but by dollar amount. And that's because it's mostly canola oil that gets processed. And a lot of that's gone into their biodiesel sector, so into the food sector. So a little bit depends on what happens with the biodiesel policy as well in the US. But on the tariffs alone, yeah, there's alternatives to canola oil, so it'll impact demand, which will impact the price of canola. Having said that, the global supply-demand situation for canola right now is actually low supply. So how much it impacts that price is a question mark. We're mostly through the export season for this previous crop. It'll impact the crops going forward. And yeah, it'll impact price, generally speaking, which trickles down to the farmer.
Can you just provide a bit of an overview of what we sell to the US, what comes back? Because I know it's a super integrated supply chain in North America for livestock and beef. So maybe just give an overview and then go into the next level of how the tariffs are going to play out.
The biggest livestock in this province is beef. And it is, like you say, it's an integrated industry north and south of the border. And it's been that way for multiple years. It's not something new. We in Canada have feeding capacity, and in the US they have processing capacity. So we are a net importer of feeder cattle, although feeder cattle move in both directions across the border. And we're a net exporter of fed cattle or fat cattle that go to processing. So, and they go to the northern US states from here into Idaho and Washington and Montana. So long and short, there is a lot of live cattle moving back and forth across the border. So when the tariffs come on, it's an immediate impact. Those loads get canceled. And then, beyond that, obviously, is the beef production. So we produce in Canada, about 1.2 million tons of beef. We consume in Canada probably about 55% of that. 35% or 30 to 35 goes to the US and the balance international. So again, we're a net exporter of processed beef. Food processing will get hit pretty significantly and fairly immediately with tariffs applied as well. The US is a big market for food and beverage products. So it's going to be, again, it's one of these things, everyone's going to be slightly different, but obviously canola oil is a processed product. Wheat and flour products, other processed grains are shipped south as well into different industries. Part of the reason why the US is a big market is you need geographics. So, in terms of shipping processed food products, into international markets, having proximity is good. So if you start to draw a line at the border and not have the proximity to the consumption and the consumer demand and the people, that's going to have a fairly immediate impact on some of those exports.